When choosing the brass you want to reload, if consistency is your biggest concern, Lapua brass has long been the easy answer. However, if you listen to what a lot of people have to say about Starline brass, you would think that Starline might be the standard to which all others would be held to. Today, I thought it'd be fun just to do a quick comparison to see which brass is the correct choice for you. Today we're going to evaluate cost, weight consistency, volume consistency, and give you an idea if weight sorting your brass could even make it more consistent. So let's get started. When choosing your reloading brass, for many, the most important factor is cost. At this point, I don't have any comparison data for the number of reloads you might get between the two brands. However, I know in 6.5 Creedmoor, I've been able to get more than 20 reloads on some of my Lapua brass. But when it comes to the number of reloads, there's many factors in play. But for this 223 brass, the initial cost winner, if you want to call it that, is going to be Starline. I was able to pick up these 100 pieces from Creedmoor Sports for about $29, so less than 30 cents a piece. The Lapua brass was basically $70 for the 100, so more than twice the price. At this point, I don't know how many reloads we're going to be able to get out of it, but it's going to have to last more than twice as long as the Starline brass just to break even. But next, let's evaluate their case weight consistency. Personally, I would hardly argue that measuring case weight is a good mark of consistency, but it is what a lot of guys measure. So let's talk about our case weight. Lapua's average case weight over the 100 pieces was 97.61 grains. Starline was just slightly heavier at 98.9. However, the consistency, we want to talk about the standard deviation and the extreme spread. The standard deviation of the case weight was 0.39 grains, but Starline's was 0.35. The extreme spread between the heaviest and lightest piece of brass for Lapua was 1.96 grains, and Starline was 1.84. So looking at this, Starline was the clear winner, both in standard deviation and extreme spread. Now, these are prime case numbers. You might wonder why, and that's so I can test the volume. Looking at this info, it would be easy to be impressed that for less than half the price, Starline brass had better weight consistency. Unfortunately, if you stop right here, you might not get the whole picture on the consistency between the two brands. Also, since the Starline brass is a little bit heavier, there might be slightly less case volume, but we won't know until we test. To really evaluate this brass, we want to know how consistent the internal case volume is between the two brands. So for this, we measured the internal case volume on all 200 cases. We did know that our Starline was slightly heavier, and we can see that our volume data, the Starline has slightly less volume compared to Lapua, though they're very close. But again, this is where consistency really comes into play. The average case volume of Lapua brass was just under 30.2 grains, and Starline was just over 30 grains. However, the standard deviation of Lapua was 0.03 grains of water, and the standard deviation for the Starline was 0.06 grains, exactly twice as much. But what about the extreme spread? The extreme spread for the Lapua brass over 100 cases was a total of 0.14 grains of water. Extremely tight. The Starline brass, 0.32. This isn't to say that the Starline brass is bad, but the Lapua is just excellent when it comes to case volume consistency. And frankly, for me, this is the biggest factor I would pay attention to. But you do you. But what if we were to sort the brass? Can it get any better? If you sort the cases by weight and then chart them, you can see with the Lapua brass that there really isn't a good correlation between the volume and the weight. Running the correlation function in Excel, the correlation coefficient is negative 0.2971. This is negative correlation because as one goes up, the other goes down. In case you're not familiar with the correlation function in Excel, the least correlation would be down at 0, and the most correlation in this case would be a negative 1. So in this situation, the function should return a number between negative 1 and 0. The closer the number is to negative 1, the more likely you are to be able to get more consistent case volume simply by sorting the case weight. The closer the number is to 0, the less valuable it will be. In this case, pretty much it looks like a waste of time. But what about the Starline brass? Running the correlation function on this data, it comes out to be negative 6.17. Still not perfect correlation, however, twice that of the Lapua. And you can see that some of the more extreme cases could have been removed from the group if you did weight sort them. In the data, it's clear that the heaviest case measured had the lowest case volume, and this certainly was an outlier. Depending on your situation, you're going to have to decide whether the extra consistency offered by Lapua cases is worth the extra cost. And you'll have to be the one that determines whether sorting your cases by either weight or volume is worth your time. If you ever wondered how good range brass could actually be, check out this video right here where I compare several different brands of range brass and see just how good it can get. You may be surprised. And until next week, stay safe in small groups.